And also, you said that there should be a special treatment for the Korean expats living abroad. But as I was listening to you, I could agree with some of the items. But for Koreans with the different nationalities, you said that these Korean expats should be treated like Koreans, and but it's not the. But international convention says that regardless of the nationalities, the international adoption is defined as those adoptions that occur across a border. So I think that I do not think that a bloodline is very important when it comes to adoption like this. And I think that it's not the nationalities or the bloodline that's important. I think it's the qualification of the adoptive parents that's more important. And also the potential adoptive parents should be qualified according to their laws of the respective countries. But I do not agree to having an exception like this for the Korean expats living in other countries, because these Korean expats, they live in other countries, and I do not think that we should give them the same treatment as those Koreans living in Korea, because I don't think we should give them a special treatment, because also these Korean expats living in other countries are minorities, and therefore maybe we should be more careful about giving them the same preferential treatment. And I think about the relationship between the Civil Code and the Adoption Act. Of course, we have to have a complete and full study of the potential of adoptive parents. And however, the Civil Code does not completely protect the adoptees, because according to the Civil Code, adoption can take place as long as we have the consent from the biological parents and the adoptive parents. And here in Korea, there are many cases of adoption that have taken place under the Civil Code. And so I think that however, the trends have changed when it comes to adoption in Korea, and I think that we should have what I'm saying that we have two separate procedures or two separate ways for adoption, one in accordance with the Adoption Act and the other in accordance with the Civil Act. And I think we have to streamline this. We have to integrate this into one, so that we should have a single act or the single law that oversees adoption of children. Although it's not included in my discussion paper, but as I was listening to the presentation, I thought that in regards to adoption consent, and if parents have given a consent when giving the children to a shelter, I wonder if that consent also includes adoption of a full adoption, not just an adoption. And if not, I think we should let the biological parents know before getting their consent, that there could be a full adoption as well as a simple adoption.
So we have listened to three panelists' views, and while some of the views overlap, I think they actually have provided very valuable comments based on their expertise. and Dr. Park has especially shed light on the civil code and its impact on adoption. Now, may I invite Dr. Park? Good afternoon. I am Soyeon Park, and I am from Korea Legal Aid Center for Family Relations. I would like to talk about the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and it prioritizes best interest of the child, non-discrimination, right to life, survival and development, and also respect of child's opinion. And I think the adoption process should recognize these principles. So the requirements and the procedure of adoption and post-adoption services, and sometimes the disruption and dissolution of adoption should involve legitimate legal processes, and in the process the rights of the child should be protected. And for this, the adoption service providers have to be faithful to their responsibilities and obligations, and there should be adequate oversight of these service providers as well. Dr. Hall has based her paper on the promotion of best interest of the child in the amendment of this law, and I think she has given valuable input into the amendment. And in general, I agree with the principles of the amendments, but there should be certain improvements that should be made. And I think one of them would be the practicality of this home study and qualifications of the adoptive parents. I know that we need to strengthen this, but we have to make this effective. So if there is a stronger rule, but without the necessary implementation, it will be meaningless. So we need to have the adoption agencies to have the right to investigate, to provide this kind of report. So we need to recognize the authority of the adoption agencies and also oversee these agencies so that they can be punished when they do not fulfill their obligations. And secondly, the age lowering of child's consent to adoption. I think we could further lower this down to maybe 12, because the children nowadays are growing and maturing at a faster pace, both physically and mentally. So I think maybe from the age of 12 we can seek the consent of the child on the adoption issue. And international conventions also requires that we listen to the views of the children on issues that affect their lives. And also this applies to children under age 12. And even for children under age 12, the international conventions say that we need to take adequate measures to listen to their views, and I think this should be reflected in the amendments for adoption as well. Current law requires that we have to seek consent of children over 15 when they are put up for adoption, but I think we should lower this age limit further down to maybe 12. And the deliberation of biological parents, Dr. Ha has given ideas as to how to amend this. And if we look at some of the cases, the single mothers give consent prior to birth, but then after birth she changed her mind and she tried to cancel and retract her consent, but nevertheless the unwed mothers were denied this right. I actually used the concept of unwed mother instead of single mothers, because single mother seems to carry a very negative connotation, which is why we're trying to shift to the concept of unwed mothers. Anyhow, the most of the great proportion of the adoption is actually taken place when the unwed mothers give up their children for adoption. And often there is financial difficulties, uncertain relationship with the father, and so they face a lot of stress while giving birth to their child. So we need to give them ample time and opportunity to deliberate on their decision to give up their child. And in that sense, I agree to the deliberation period requirement, but we need to